Good morning and happy Easter.
Good morning.
To all of you sitting here and to all of you on Facebook that are viewing us from around the world, we're so glad to have you with us. So, we've been taking this journey through self-mastery for the last 6 weeks, culminating here on Easter Sunday. So I was thinking about rising again and self-mastery and what does it mean and how do you know when you're in it? In January I had jury duty and I ended up in a group of about 50-60 people who were led into a courtroom sometime during the day, and from that group of 50 to 60, 13 were going to be selected for this jury. So they started all the questioning to see who was going to be eliminated by the prosecutor and the defense. So when we first got there, we didn't know what the trial was going to be about. So the prosecutor stood up and he introduced the defendant to us, and he said that he was accused of child molestation over a period of time. And so I felt the anxiety within me just rise because I have a history of child molestation. And here they were going to start questioning us about, do you know of anyone who was accused of such a crime? And if so, can you still remain objective and consider him innocent until proven guilty? And so I kind of sat in my emotions for a moment, considering that, and I looked at the defendant and kept looking at him and appraising him and thinking, innocent until proven guilty. Can I do that despite what I'm feeling right now? So they started to question people, do you know of anyone who's been accused of such a crime? And if you don't want to answer that in front of everyone in the gallery, you can talk to the lawyers confidentially in a moment. They never did ask if anyone had been a victim of such a crime, which surprised me. But I had to ask myself, if they did ask, could I raise my hand? And would I stand up and say, I want to talk confidentially to the lawyers, or would I be able to stand in my truth and say, yes, I was a victim? And so as all of this is going on, my head is just kind of going through all of these questions, double checking, how do I feel and can I think straight right now? And so I looked at the defendant again, as much as part of me didn't want to, and as much as part of me wanted to judge him already. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, you are a child of God just as I am. And yes, I think I can see you innocent until proven guilty, even with my history. And then I knew that because I think it's important for us to stand in our truth, that I could stand up in front of the gallery and say, yes, I was a victim, and not be a victim. That's when I knew I have self-mastery over this situation. Because trust me, for about 50-some years, I did not. When we first moved here 13 years ago, I probably would not have been able to do that. Because when you relocate, and I didn't know this when we first got here, when you relocate or you have a big crisis or change in your life, some things in your history will come up again for you to heal them at a different level. And so I had some challenges when we first moved here, and we were living in a house on one floor, and I had to deal with the fact that we had all these windows and somebody could possibly come through them. So for the first 6 months, I didn't sleep through the night. But here I was, 13 years later, and said I could stand in my truth and my power and say, yes, I have been victimized with a crime such as this, and yes, I'm still good. That is when you know you are in self-mastery. When the buttons get pushed, and you know the button's been pushed, and you are good. When things are happening around you, and the alligators are snapping, jumping out of the moat that's around you, and you don't feel a threat. When conversations that you would rather not hear are happening, and you don't feel the need to fight or flee even. Because sometimes on the path, self-mastery means I can walk away from this and be okay. It could also mean that I can stand in the fray and be good. So you know you're in your self-mastery when the ugliness, when the button's getting pushed, when the rug gets pulled out from under you suddenly, and you're good. And you may waver for a second, like I did in court. There were some moments when I thought, oh man, take a breath, take a breath. Here we go, here we go. And what am I going to do now? Because I could have gotten up and left. And I said, no, I can do this. Self-mastery is when you can be peaceful and peace is not around you. When there's chaos and you're good. Not but I'm good. Not despite the circumstances, and I am good. Self-mastery means you're still in full awareness. It may not mean that the pain goes away, but you can be in your pain and be good. You can acknowledge the pain. Yes, I feel grief, and life is good. Yes, I miss my loved one, and I'm good. Yes, my relationship's falling apart, and I feel good. And I know who I am. Remember we talked about masters always know who they are. They always know what their foundation is, and they stand on it all the time, no matter what. And when the foundation starts to shake, and you have aftershocks, and things are happening, you still know where to plant your feet. And you stay planted. Self-mastery is when your friends decide, and you're in the mix with them saying, oh, we're going to do this new thing together, and then you realize at some point that you need to step out. And you can stand in your truth and say, I bless you on your way, and I'm so happy for you, and I have to do something else right now. Because I'm called to something different. And stand in your truth. And be okay whether your friends are okay with what you've decided or not. Self-mastery. It's a beingness. It's a knowingness about who you are and what your foundation is. And it's always here. You always come back to it. It is your home. It is your retreat. It's what calms your heartbeat down. after something's pushed your buttons and you start to feel something going wonky. And then you say, no, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I believe in. I am good. And the heart rate comes back down. And you're good. That's self-mastery. So it doesn't mean life smooths out. I wish it did. It doesn't mean the road is straight and easy and sunshiny every single day. But it means you can navigate through the pain and through the darkness and through the rain and through the obstacles and the speed bumps and the hurdles and the constant barrage of stuff and be who you are, which is divine and powerful and strong, and be able to say it out loud, to breathe into it. I love this quote by Marcus Aurelius. Hopefully I can find it quickly. Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores and mountains, and thou too art wont to desire such things very much. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men, for it is in thy power, whenever thou shalt choose, to retire into thyself. For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble, does a man retire than into his own soul, particularly when he has within him such thoughts that by looking into them he is immediately in perfect tranquility. And I affirm that tranquility is nothing else than a good ordering of the mind. Constantly then give to thyself this retreat, and renew thyself, and let thy principles be brief and fundamental, which, as soon as thou shalt recur to them, will be sufficient to cleanse the soul completely, and to send thee back free from all discontent with the things to which thou returnest. Marcus Aurelius says it's all in here. Return to the self, the power self. This is where you retreat to. This is where you go. This is home. Home is not someone, some place. I had to learn that home was not my loved ones, because then I felt lost without them. And when I called them in and realized that they never left because it's all inside, that's when I returned home to myself, to strength and power, to mastery. I had to remember who I was. So this is the retreat. Because in times of trouble, we have the desire to run somewhere, to something. We want to grab on to something else. We feel like we need something to hold on to. I know that feeling. I had it this morning on the way here for a few moments and sat in the car. I got a text, actually from one of Quentin's cousins, that said the whole family's coming over, we're going to have dinner together. And it made me miss mine. And in my happiness for her, I had a moment. And so I sat and let myself have it. And I thought of my mother and my father and my sister. And said, yes, I'm still home. And yes, life is still good. And yes, on this morning where we celebrate resurrection, I am good. And I can be reborn. I can resurrect. I can rise in every moment of every day. No matter what. So in those moments when you're tempted to run from whatever it is, let yourself be in the moment. Let yourself be right there in the gift. Be there. Retreat, like Marcus Aurelius said, into thyself and proclaim yourself home. In your self-mastery.